Hi everybody and welcome back to my booktube channel, Books with Leo, and today I am finally here to talk about my favourite books of 2021. This is always one of my favourite videos to make each year, and this year I have not gotten to it yet, so I'm really excited to finally be making this video. If my voice sounds a little bit weird, and maybe you've also noticed that I've been absent for a bit, I just had my tonsils taken out and I've been ill for a while, so you can still kind of hear it in my voice, so don't be surprised if I sound a little bit different than you're used to. So I always have a hard time picking my favourite reads because there's so many books that I like, and there's always a lot of books that I enjoy each year, and definitely within like categories as fantasy. I read a lot of fantasy, so there's always lots of fantasy books that make it like to the favourites list, but I'm trying to have like diverse categories in this list as well, so it's not just fantasy books, and that's always a struggle for me. I have managed to select a few books. It's a really nice list, even though I say so myself, that I want to talk about for today and share with you guys, and I really hope you get some recommendations out of it, and maybe you can share some of your favourite reads of the past year in the comments down below. That would be really great. So this year I want to start off with a favourite read that is a middle grade, and that is Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. This is the third book in the Nevermore series, and this is just one of my all-time favourite series because it just makes me really happy, and books that make me happy are usually my favourite type of books. So this is book 3, and specifically this book I read for the first time this year, last year I mean, but I did an entire reread of all of the Nevermore books, and I just genuinely enjoyed the whole reread. But this book specifically, I was just like, wow, I really feel like this series is sort of aging up from middle grade as the books go on and as the characters get older, and I always really love when you're like living with the characters in that way, so I really enjoyed that. I think I've explained the plot of Nevermore so many times on this channel, but anyway, here we go again. This is about Morrigan Crow, who's been cursed, and basically her family hates her, the whole town hates her because it's her fault. Like everything that happens in the town they blame on her, and she's also destined to die on her 12th birthday, I think, so it's a great time overall. And then she gets kidnapped, sort of whisked away by this weird magical man called Jupiter North, and he takes her to a different magical land where she discovers that she might have powers, and she has to do a sort of entrance exam competition to get into a magical school. And then this may be considered a spoiler, so if you really don't want to know anything about how the story progresses, then skip ahead. But she gets accepted into the school, and then in book 2 and 3 we follow her journey in the magical school and the things she learns, the characters. These books are just so sort of quirky and magical, so much fun. There's so much whimsy in them, and just like they also are very original. Like for example, they have a home train, so they have like a train that is their homeroom basically, and it takes them to school every day, and all of their rooms have like a magical portal into the station, and it's really cool. And there's a lot of things in these books that I just feel so new, but sort of also like you've read them before, and they feel very like coming home, and it's just very cozy and happy. And yeah, one of my favourite series. Also has a lot of great elements about life and, you know, being kind to other people, stuff like that. And there's also a magical hotel in which Morrigan lives, and there's a magical cat, and it just, if you like Wes Anderson films, I think you would also like this book, so you should pick it up. It's really great. So read Nevermore. The whole series is so good. Then another one of my favourite books this year is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I've talked about this book so much, I almost considered not putting it on the list for this year because I was just like, oh, I don't feel like talking about it again. But it was definitely one of my favourite books, maybe even the favourite book of this year. It's an essay collection, and it's really inspired me to read more essay collections. Lately I've been on an essay collection buying spree. And Dolly Alderton writes about being in your 20s, being a woman, being a single woman, female friendships, going on weird nights out, discovering yourself, sisters. It's just, oh, so many things in this book were so beautiful to me and made me so happy, and just, it was very relatable, but at the same time it was written in such a funny way, and it was just, at certain points it was endearing, and then at other points it was completely ridiculous, and then I had to laugh, I cried. It was so beautiful. So if you like essay collections and you like books that are really funny and relatable, if you're a woman that is in her early 20s and single, then I would highly recommend this book. It's also just really big on female friendship and having these connections with your friends. I think if you've recently become single, or maybe you have a friend who has, or you just want to see like the great value of female friendships again, then definitely read this book because it was just so wonderful and I would highly recommend it. Another one of my favorites this year was Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura. Oh my god, this was so good. I wasn't really sure whether I was gonna love this book when I first picked it up because I had heard many people say that it feels really slow, and I usually like slow reads, but it's always like a hit or miss situation with me. But then I started it and it was so good, and it was definitely a hit with me. It definitely reads very slow, but like in the way that Studio Ghibli films also feel like very soothing and slow. So if you like Ghibli, or Ghibli, I never know how to say it. If you like those movies, then I think you would also really love this book. It just has that sort of like cottagecore, slow vibe. Even though there's no cottages involved in this book, it's got that vibe. I don't know how to explain myself. It's basically about this girl who doesn't go to school anymore because she's being bullied, and then one night the mirror in her bedroom starts glowing and she passes through the mirror into a magical palace, and there in this castle there are all these kids who all are not going to school due to different reasons, but most of them are related to mental health, and so mental health is a really big theme in this book. So if you like books that discuss mental health, if you like magical books, if you like castles, if you like passages of characters discovering castles, that is one of my favorite things in fantasy books, when they like go out and discover secret hallways in castles. It's the thing I love. If you like all those things, then I would highly recommend this. It also draws on some fairy tales, so that's also really cool. So yeah, it's just a book I really loved and I can't wait to reread it, to be honest. I've been like waiting until the story is like sort of seeped out of my mind so I can reread it and be like overjoyed all again. So yeah, can't wait. And then I want to talk about some non-fiction that I really loved reading in 2021, and the first one that comes to mind for me is definitely Word Slut by Amanda Montell. This is such a cool book. It's basically all about how sexism has seeped into our language, but it also sort of explains some of our gendered language, and it looks at like how feminism and language should go hand in hand. And it also looks at like the speech patterns of men and women and other people, and it's really, really interesting. I just thought it was such an interesting book. It made me realize that I'm really into linguistics, and I never really knew that I found linguistics interesting until I started this book, so that's really cool. Well, I mean, I thought stories and words were interesting, but I never realized like there's an entire study of linguistics like dedicated to this. So I definitely want to read more linguistics books next year. But this one was really cool because it was a crossover between linguistics and feminism, and it also had a lot of personal anecdotes. So I think that made it very approachable for me as a reader. It was not a difficult non-fiction book, and I think the anecdotes and like the personal bits and bobs of the author that were worked into the non-fiction bits made it that way, so that was really cool. So I think this is a book that can be read by anybody, and it will teach you so many things about language and what it does to us culturally, but also on a deeper level, and it just was so cool. So yeah, it's a book I really, really enjoyed. And of course, I also had to include some romance books in this. I think I've only written one down actually. Oh no, two. I've written two down. Okay. Let's just do them both in one go. So the first book I want to talk about is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Yes, again, last year also I talked about one of the Brown sisters books, and I'm doing it again this year. These books are just, I just love them and I just want to keep talking about them. And Talia Hibbert, I want to read all of her books, but I really enjoyed Act Your Age, Eve Brown. It's definitely a new favourite for me. I also read the Dani Brown book in 2021, but honestly I don't really remember much about it. It's kind of like fell out of my brain. That's not due to the book probably, but this one I did remember, not entirely sure why. It's basically about Eve Brown, and she's always been sort of the flaky one of the family. Like, she never knows what she wants to do with her life, and she just keeps dabbling in different businesses and different things. And then her parents are like, we're cutting you off, you need to figure out what you want to do with your life. And so she gets cut off and she's like panicking, and then she drives by a bed and breakfast and she sees that they're looking for a cook, and she's like, well, I'm not a cook, but I guess I can cook. And then she goes in and she tries to get the job, but it doesn't really go well, and then she ends up running over the owner, and that's where a great romance starts. No, that's the plot, that's how it happens. This was just so fun, filled with joy. It just made me so happy, made me laugh out loud. I had such a good time with the audiobook as well. and it was just really great. And another favourite romance book I've read this year was Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur. This is a queer romance, and it's also fake dating, and it's also the grumpy sunshine trope, and it was just so good. These two girls, Elle and Darcy, they have my whole entire heart. This book just made me so happy. There's another book about Brian, I think it's called Hang the Moon or something, I don't know. I really should pick it up, but that was also a favourite this year. Then another favourite this year was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Wow, what a surprise. Nobody is surprised, like, obviously. Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favourite authors. Evelyn Hugo is one of my favourite books, and this one is now too. This is about the Reaver brothers and sisters and their famous family and Hollywood and drama, and it's also really about siblings and about choosing yourself, because at some point in your life you just have to choose you, because you can't do everything for other people. I think that's one of the big themes of this book, and that's why I loved it so much. I felt like the book kind of lost its focus in the end, but that's only something I've kind of realised after like letting it sit for a while in my mind, because when I just finished it I was like overwhelmed, crying. I was just like really into it. So I did really enjoy this book, and it's definitely a favourite of this last year. Another book I really enjoyed in 2021 was Am I Normal Yet by Holly Bourne. A few friends have been telling me for years now to read this book, and I just never did. I guess when you tell me to do something it doesn't work. I'm just built that way, I don't know. Anyway, I did finally pick it up and I listened to the audiobook, and I think this was my first Holly Bourne book. I've not read anything else by her, but this was so much fun. We follow a girl also named Evie, I think, and she has OCD. So this one also is really big on the mental health themes. Yeah, she's definitely struggling with her OCD. I think this book can be very, very triggering if you're currently struggling with OCD or also maybe even anxiety. So keep that in mind, but it's also such a hilarious read, and the audiobook especially is the most British thing ever. It's like I was like biking and listening to this audiobook, and it just felt like I was having a call with my sister who's really British and has mental health issues. That's what it felt like. So it was really funny. It's very much set in high school and it has a lot of themes of like girls wanting a boyfriend. Basically Evie has just had a really bad bout of OCD, and she's gotten into therapy, and she's now still in therapy, but she's also back to school, and she's like, she really wants to be a normal girl, but she's not, because she's really struggling with her OCD. And then it also touches upon topics of feminism and female friendship, so I thought that was really cool. I just thought it was so well done and very well balanced as a book. And yeah, I know there's also a sequel, but it's not available on Scribd, so I'm really sad. I really want to listen to it. And then last but not least, another one of my favourite books I've read this year was The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. So this is the second book in the Life Ship Traders trilogy. I still have to read the third book. I think it's almost like, I read this in January and February last year, so like I barely remember by now, but I really want to read the third book. I just haven't found one in this edition in Dutch, so it's been a struggle. Anyway, I really want to read the third book, and this one was amazing. It was so well done. It had all the twists and turns, and there were so many things that I didn't see coming. Robin Hobb fantasy books always feel like a low simmering soup to me. I know that sounds like slightly ridiculous, but just hear me out, okay? It's like there's so many things that are in the making when you start reading these books. There's like so many setups for characters and character developments and things they go through, and so many Easter eggs and so much fantasy lore, and it just sort of all builds up to these climaxes where you discover certain things and piece things together, and it's just like, it's a soup that just sort of keeps giving more taste with each bite, and it's just slowly simmering up to this amazing masterpiece. And that's just what this book feels like. And all of Robin Hobb's books, but definitely this series, it's just filled with pirates and amazing sea adventures and amazing characters and balls and court drama and families, noble houses, and it's just so political and so interesting. And if you're into pirates and fantasy and character development, I guess, oh my god, pick these up. They're a bit slow. There's certain parts that are hard to get through, especially there were some scenes bordering on like sexual assault in this book that were a bit like, didn't love it, but still it was well handled, and I just think these are so good and I would recommend them to anybody. Why do I keep saying that? I'm just really enthusiastic about all of these books, okay? Anyway, those were all the books I wanted to talk about today. My throat is really sore by now, so I'm glad I'm done. Anyway, I really enjoyed talking about my favorites of this year. I also really hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and yeah, let me know in the comments down below what were your favorites this year, and if you don't know what to comment, just comment a nice book emoji, and I always really appreciate your comments. They make me really happy, and I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!